Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question, and that is to discuss female psychopath splitting. And let's just keep an open mind, an open drawer about this when we talk about the female psychopath. I know we have a lot of viewers who are, dealing with a male energy psychopath. So that is okay. Just still, understand that this largely studies have shown that about 75% of psychopaths are male and 25% are female. So, our viewership is like comprised of a little bit of everybody. I would say, probably close to 50-50. So just as a keep an open mind when we talk about these topics and just apply it to your understanding and your situation. And, specifically they want to talk about what is splitting behavior in a female psychopath or a psychopath. What does it mean to have this sort of behavioral tendency or repertoire, if you will, that you encounter, like, that is unique to this person? It's just kind of like, you might think of it as an emotional minefield. Next thing you know, you've just stepped on an emotional mine that's like blowing up. You have immediate or intense rage, very extreme opinions on a very specific situation, like they've just been stuck with a pin and they're jumping off the table. These the sort of overinflated reactions at things, not just like hip hip hooray, I'm so excited. We're talking on the negative. We're talking flying off the handle, where they are internally triggered by something apparently that is not in the environment, that they go off the deep end, off the high dive, off the low dive, off all dives. They just take the plunge, if you will, and then they look and seek to take others with them. And the splitting behavior is very oftentimes paired with triangulation. Means I've got you intense buddies over here who are for me or against me over here, and I've got another person who's sort of in the middle who we play like a pawn and then serve that as a lever or an influence of antagonism or aggression or peace and benevolence on the other side, where they use another person sort of really as a pawn, in other words, as a reference to trigger jealousy, to trigger anger, to trigger shame, to continually point out humiliation, to have sort of the lever on the hot button with people, either super hot or super cold. This sort of splitting behavior, I would say, when a psychopath is really sort of on their psychopath high, meaning they are really sort of juggling a lot on their plate. They're courting a lot of different relationships that are oftentimes disparate in quality, meaning they're very different in type or quality. In other words, the Madonna and the whore complex, or whatever you call it. There's probably another, the Madonna and mistress complex, but it's worse than that, I would say, for those types. There's, this sort of splitting or two-facedness or it's not like a multiple personality, but there's a definitely different personality and very complete difference in the way that they behave in one setting and versus another. I mean, it's very, very, and oftentimes discordant in nature, which means, they're on a certain type of behavior or a certain type of characteristic here, and then very different and oftentimes conflicting of values over here. And, they expect people to negotiate all this and then develop what is known as a cognitive dissonance, where they're then sort of trapped into doing one thing but feeling another, saying one thing and doing another. Something just seems off, but this person is sort of really pulling the strings of this emotional intensity at the extremes. I mean, just like a magician with a rubber band that they're just like spinning it over here or whatever it is. You might even consider it juggling fire or eating fire. It's very much the same an emotional energy, I would say. It gets people really lit up, fired up, juiced up, jacked up. I feel I'm flying. This is awesome. All these different experiences, but oftentimes they're experiences that are off the handle. I mean, they hit the Vaseline, grabbed it, and then flew. I mean, these people don't have a grip. They don't, they have a grip, but they don't want you to have a grip. This is what I am referring to. And and I know people say don't say but what I'm referring to is that one of the feelings associated with one of the telltale signs really of that which you would consider emotional abuse, which people undergo in a very intense way, is that they feel after the experience so in other words, they usually enter the experience with a relationship feeling one way, rooted, connected, grounded, anchored in themselves. These are the solutions that I am talking about right now. So when we talk about healing from this, just sort of giving you the understanding or the answer, if you will, the abstract or the solution or the elixir, the fix, if you will, I want to give it to you now, is the importance of being anchored within yourself. So that whole key fundamental aspect of self-reliance, self-governing, autonomy. I mean, we're talking about internal psychological qualities here. And in other words, yourself, your sense of self, your I am. This is who I am, with a sense of dignity, pride, affection, approval of self, acceptance, where you don't have a care in the world. I mean, you might even go back to a childhood state. We're talking really at a playful state where you are okay with things. You're not worried about things getting overly judged. You're not entering yet into the world of the ego, which is where a lot of the splitting behavior takes place, that the psychopath will use as a wrench, as a ratchet, as a whatever, ice pick, whatever you call it, that breaks apart the boulder that is the rock that is you, that is inextricably connected to the source of all that you need. I'm just trying to circle you back to your place of strength and centeredness, because that becomes like an emotional amnesia when you're really working through this relationship. We are talking about saturated down to the marrow, down to the bone marrow, with toxic thoughts, seeds that are planted, oftentimes very split or intense and polarized, that they will exasperate, and they don't realize that they're gradually getting you to the extreme. You're like, how did I even get here? It's like an emotional Maserati. I mean, who wouldn't be thrilled and chilled and up in arms and like, yeah, woo, whatever it is your reaction initially with when things were going good. So in other words, your self-esteem, that which is the target oftentimes of the splitting behavior, which means polarizing you. You're either all good or you're all bad. They feel all this way, and then suddenly you're not in. Just they have no rootedness or connection, and then this creates an uprooting and disconnection within the self because of the degree to which they reinforce and rememorize and rehearse your relationship the way that you had relied on, thought of in your head, the seeds that they were planted, that they had grown into. I mean, we're talking about psychological terms here, guys. You gotta figure this out, how it fits with your situation, and understand the cause that has created the effect. Because the whole ruinous thing is like, if you lose yourself, you lose everything. So they're gambling on you losing it. They're gambling on that. We're talking about a very uncomfortable state. We're talking about a very undesirable mental and emotional mindset. We're talking about a very disconnected and isolated, far out feeling of removal from oneself and what one's confidence and one's self-reliance tools, as if you don't know how to work them anymore, as if you lost just sort of your cahoots, you lost all that you were about. Like, I don't know how to make it work anymore, or just like, what just happened? And then it's like a dizzy spell, or what on earth? And for some people, I think they get into a mind-altered, sort of addicted and drug-like state with these types of individuals once it goes that far. And they just don't see perspective. They are sort of really under the sauce of the Kool-Aid or whatever it is that they are pumping out, which is toxic, dark, deviant, against the law, unlawful, against the rules, against the boundaries. You know, for some reason they feel they are above it all. That is their thinking. And then they bring these people who are innocent, unknowing, people with assets, intelligent, talent, good intentions, success. They drag them right there over what you feel are the victory coals, and then you end up in the tar of your feathers, where your feathers, i.e. your ability to fly, is shut down. Like, it ain't flying back up, and how do I even clean this out? I mean, you know, literally feel like the old, it's like a very tar and feathery feel, as if, you know, you didn't even know, they were darkening feathers you didn't even know that you have, or that could be, you know, affected or plucked out. I mean, I'm giving you some visuals, I'm giving you some emotional feels, because this is what it is like. We're not talking about someone who, oh, this was just a rough go of things. We're talking about really, you know, an emotional, feel bad situation. I mean, we're talking about real hurt. We're not talking about, you know, just, you know, we just didn't see things eye to eye. We grew apart. We feel bad for the kids. We're very different people. And this is the root of a very deep problem, which becomes a very deep-seated angst for a lot of people, where they have a difficult feeling that they can get back on their feet. And they can, and they will better and stronger, but you have to kind of take a couple side roads, back roads, twisting highways to kind of get there. What you might consider scenic, vivid, but definitely nausea creating, terrifying, and feeling that you might not make it. I mean, this is the road. This is the road less traveled. M. Scott Peck, I mean, what did he write about? You open up the book, life is difficult. Well, okay, you know, do we have a common denominator here? So it's really important. You need yourself like an anchor, meaning at peace, as within your body. In other words, like, wasn't there a show back in the day, I Dream of Jeannie, and you had that bottle, and then she would kind of come out and then be there for the master, Major Lee, and then she would do her little magic thing, and then she'd be right back in her own little den in the bottle, and then she'd hear it rubbing, and that would be the master coming to get her out. He needed help with something. You have to go back in the bottle for yourself, meaning come back in your own space. Come back, regroup. Not get bottled up, not drink a bunch of whiskey or wine or vodka or whatever it is people end up drowning their sorrows with. Do not do that. Come back to self. Get used to being in a very peaceful, relaxed body. This has gone out of style, out of sync, out of whatever. It's not advertised. You know, why would you advertise relaxing? Well, whatever. I mean, I'm just trying to give you a news flash that part of the problem with this sort of borderline talk is a very much of a show of display of opposites, which oftentimes are incongruent, meaning they do not make sense. So there is a disconnect. What oftentimes people feel is, you might consider it in the beginning a very dynamic personality. Oh wow, like they're on that, and so I'm just trying to explain to you, but only you know the truth. You know what you've seen and felt, but what I'm trying to explain is that the splitting oftentimes is involved then with triangulation. We're talking about very high level, sort of sophisticated understanding. I mean, you can literally draw it out with a map. Maybe we need to get back to the whiteboard. I mean, you guys got to understand what is in play here. Literally like a ball in play, like a puck in play. You have moving parts and characters in play that you have to deal with. You have to come to terms with. You have to understand their moves, their trajectory, their intentions. Who is on your side and supporting you and who is not. I mean, being very clear, it becomes really important when you really get this. And oftentimes it's a very blurry line that the psychopath will put a good old-fashioned heap of Vaseline on the glass so you cannot see it. That is the blurring of the splitting. That is where you're supposed to lose focus. Oh my God, it doesn't make sense. I'm so addicted to being irresponsible, or allowing this sort of thought pattern which is exhibited by the female or male psychopath, which creates this rivet and the sort of disconnect of images that the individual has for the future and what is a falsehood and a reality, and really where they're setting you up for no good. So it's a very very intense experience, because their thought patterns, you think that they are supportive, but then you find out that there is a big zag to the zig, where you find out that they're not there for you. They're not all that they put on, and you know it. I mean, sometimes you have to call a bluff. You have to call a spade a spade. Do not give up your truth. You have to be able to grit your teeth, put your feet in, and then call it what it is. Once you see this divisiveness, and meaning I'm going to put, there's a bunch of us over here, and then there's you little flaily things, and we're going to go for this, and we're going to manipulate you here, and we're, our opinion, in other words, a very subtle put downs. And this is psychopathic manipulation. You don't realize a psychopath will tell you that they respectfully disrespect you. So it's coded. I mean, really, you will know when you're being respected and supported. Hey, this happened. This is what it is. Gone. Bye-bye-bye. It's not being used against you again and again. A psychopath, a female psychopath, will use something on the splitting against you again and again, even though it bears no bearing, it bears no weight, it bears no resemblance to anything. They'll just continue to re-prick you for some reason because it causes you pain. And if you are in pain, you can be manipulated and made insecure by this individual. This is just, this is what they do. The pain that they inflict is greater than your ability to self-soothe and redirect yourself. And they know this. It's just like if someone is, standing on your toes, it's very difficult to pull away. I mean, this is what they do. You have to understand the pain in the beginning of the manipulation. I mean, it has that source, and and that who can cause you that much pain has control over you. That person who can cause that much fear over you also is seeking to have control over you. Who do you want driving your horse? Do you see, it's like you're handing over the reins. Yeah, why don't you direct the coach? Let's go trip-trotting over here, off-road, off-land, rumble, rumble. Yeah, ain't it fun and exciting until the wheel breaks, and then this person ain't there to fix it. I mean, they will leave you with a broken chariot, a broken horse, a broken down spirit. It's just like, oops, and then you cannot believe the harm, what they inflict, oftentimes through the triangulation, which means the movement or pivoting of another person who is like the pawn at play. In other words, there'll be one way to this individual here and another as another way. And that person oftentimes is used as almost like a hurdle for you then to get over, improve, and justify yourself. Meaning that you have to prove you're a good person, or prove you're a bad guy, or prove you're bad enough, downright assertive enough, prove that you are in it enough. I mean, they cause people to up their game and up their ante and sort of what they feel is growing into the relationship. But for the psychopath, you are just growing in the lie. To them, they are just growing the lies that they have fed. And I'm sure, they are thinking, wow, look what I grew. This fear, this paranoia, this blind-sighted individual who I've blinded them through the Vaseline smear. You can't, see through the glass. It's just opaque. How can you make out any detail? How can you regroup and come back when all your detail has been smeared or re-erased? It's a very uncomfortable feeling for a lot of people because they can't feel that they can't sort of go back to that anchor or their sense of self. It is not permitted. It is unwanted. It is made an object of shame and contempt, of derision and hate, of angst and rejection. So then you're literally, people then are then abandoned in a state of self-rejection. It just becomes this big mess of emotions that have no direction other than somebody had sort of usurped or used whatever it is that they need. They gave you some, situations along the way. It becomes a loss of where is my anchor, meaning what am I anchored in? And if you find that you're anchored in an abyss, i.e. something that has no bottom, something that does not have any content, something that does not have any sense of self, love, or connection, then you ain't got a root, you ain't got an anchor, you got a sawed off, basically, fishing pole that don't have any hook on it, or you got a boat that does not have a rudder, that can just go along with whatever this waves this person puts in your life, and then you become really just like a boat adrift on the sea, floating out there. You become, just, and for some people, oh, okay, that, whoa, how do you get back to land? How do you get re-anchored? So you might find if you're anchored in the wrong spot, you're anchored in the sewage, you're anchored in the muck, and it ain't coming out, you're anchored in something even worse that you don't even want to talk about, then cut it off. Cut off your losses and do not look back. You have to detach and disconnect because the anchor is not for you. It is against you. It's a repellent device. It's not an attractor device. It's a repellent, if you will. It's a repellent energy that you actually are feeling. So it's like they're pulling you there only to punch you back. They're pulling you there only to punch you back. What is the purpose? What is the benefit of this type of relationship? What are you doing? You are like basically circling back and punching your own self in the face. It's time for this to stop. This is triggered and set up by psychopathic splitting and triangulation. So splitting meaning they have these very extreme situations, meaning, I'm very into this, but yet I'm also very into this, and the two don't mix. Oil and water. What they're doing, it does not jive. It does not fuse. It's like two separate parts of a self of this person. And you've got, two different masks, if you will. They put on a persona and a facade. So, and they can metamorphosize and change with the setting, with the season, with the day, whatever it is that they need to get. They'll put on the persona to get whatever it is that they need to get, and then they'll put on the other persona over here to get what it is that they're, building over there. And then, but the problem is the discordant. It's discordant, meaning it's like music notes that go against each other. Some people, you might call it a musical tension. Okay, yeah, how long are you going to put up with this tension? This, meaning it's disparaging, it's against, it's either for you or against you. And it becomes very much about that, I would say, in the long run, when you really pick up your head and go, oh my gosh, what have I just been through? And then how do you pick up the pieces? How do you get back on solid ground, let alone back standing on gold? Getting back and following and chasing the rainbow again. Well, the rainbow still exists. The chase is still out there for you. The pursuit of happiness is still there. You have to detach from this style of thinking and really give your body a chance to settle down and reach homeostasis, because they will get you people riled up, intrusive thoughts, things that they are just repeated, where they can't get them out of their dreams. They're talking in their sleep. They have unwanted dreams or nightmares. This is a testimony to the degree to which they have infiltrated one's subconscious, to which they have affected you. And it does get better. It does improve. It does, things do settle down. You have to be willing to retract and let go of that need to feel afraid. You have to let go of the need to feel afraid, the need to be on high alert, the need to be worried, or the need to try to understand the psychopathic situation that they are trying to create and wreak havoc in one's life. So because of that, it becomes a very fine line. So you just have to retreat really from all the web that they are involved in. I mean, it becomes a lifestyle, I would say, for those people, or a way of life, a way of life, a goal, an objective, what you find yourself involved in. But if you are finding yourself involved in a situation that involves too much of this, then you can say, that is too much of that. That is the deep end. I ain't going there. Adios, goodbye. My boat don't even go to those waters. You have to physically not even go into contact, into cahoots, into communication. You just have to get out, exit. It's just that simple. For a lot of people, it might not be that simple. It might be very more complicated, but at least you can get your vision back for yourself, for your life, and get some progress and results there in ways that you never thought maybe that you could be, feel rehabilitated to, if you will, to get back the pep in your step, or the ability to have a sense of normalcy and stability and security and, serenity. I mean, in other words, being anchored and surrounded in the good, the positive, the good life, with light and love, if you will. I mean, in other words, you're connected to a better energy, a better situation. And that is your direction. That is what I call positive, orderly direction thinking, POD thinking, versus negative, orderly direction thinking, which is like, no way, don't go there. Just trust your gut on this one. Even if you can't put your finger on it or put words to it, you are trusting your gut. Your gut is your instinct. It's trying to speak to you. If you feel uneasy, it is for a reason. You are not making this up. It is for a reason. So especially if you're experiencing that sort of splitting sort of behavior at the extreme, and then triangulation, using a person, using a contract, using a situation as a pawn piece, or a checker piece or a poker chip, pulling and tugging, that they're doing a dance and trying to create pathological jealousy, envy, lying, and that sort of concern and fear base, then you have to pull back. That is just, you have to exit the boxing ring. Just do not put up that struggle. It is meant to just entrap, and then you get into the entrainment. So you need to disembark, detract, decompress, get off of that way of life and be anchored back in yourself, and really recover your positive sense of self that is based on your strengths. And you will know and you will learn what those are. Stay the course. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. And I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and for goodness sake, please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace be with you, peace be within, and have a beautiful evening.